Under the same moon, we share the love. Embracing the differences like hand in glove. Spreading peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. And now do we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night.
That's it.
United we stand in love's pure might.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the channel. We really do appreciate all the support. We had a large crowd here earlier today, had 64,000 people and so many likes, and we really did have a good time sharing thoughts about current news and the current affairs of the world. We know that today Donald Trump dropped some serious news about what would happen in D.C. We have the National Guard that's going to be forefront in fighting crime in Washington, D.C. What does that mean? A lot of you have many concerns as to how this is going to affect our futures, as this may spread to other cities. I noticed today earlier in the comments, many people said that other cities should implement similar activities such as Baltimore, New York, Chicago. Chicago has always been a major place of concern because of the high criminal rate, right? But there's other news that we're going to cover. And most of all, we're going to cover what the mayor had to say in response to Donald Trump's comments today. But before we get to that, we're going to cover a few other matters that are pressing as far as the media is concerned. Oh, we have Bordeaux in the building. Thank you, Bordeaux. Thanks for the support. We have Eric in the building holding it down as well. We have JDP. She says hello to everybody. Thank you, guys. Mashona is here as well. We have so many people, and I'm happy to see it. But first, we're going to get into what happened as far as the explosion. Did you guys see the explosion that happened close to me here? I'm in New York, but this happened one state over in Pennsylvania. Let's have a look at it, folks. So this is the explosion that happened at the steel plant. Wow. That is terrifying. From what I understand, 10 people were injured. One person has been confirmed as unalived. And then another person, when I last looked, was missing. But let's get to some of the details about this event. Let's see if we can find what the media is saying. Let's see here. Okay.
The blast happened around 10:50 this morning. You can see the area of the mill where this happened. Allegheny County officials say at least one person is dead. At least one person is unaccounted for right now. And another person who was originally unaccounted for has since been found alive. County EMS says 9 other people were injured and taken to the hospital. And all.
Okay, so they found that missing person that initially they said was still missing. Okay.
5 who were taken to Jefferson Hospital have now been discharged. 2 medics who responded to the scene were also transported for evaluation. There were also multiple secondary explosions reported. No additional injuries were reported in those. Now, officials have not released the name of the man killed. The sister of Timothy Quinn says her brother is the man who died.
The Allegheny County Health Department is advising people living within a 1-mile radius of the explosion site to stay.
So it looked like that was a picture of the man who passed away with this terrible, terrible explosion.
Inside, close their doors and put their air conditioning units on recirculate. You may want to check your unit's manual for how to do that. County officials say so far the air quality monitors have not detected any particle levels that are above federal standards. Tonight, we have extensive team coverage for you, including the latest from the scene and how the community is responding to this. But first, we have details on what we know about the victim who was killed.
Reporter Yasmin Rodriguez spoke with the sister of.
So the guy that passed away, his name is Timothy Quinn.
Timothy Quinn, who confirmed his death to Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
Timothy Quinn has been confirmed to us by his sister Trisha as that one confirmed fatality. Trisha telling us this news shortly before 4:30 when she was notified again her brother.
So we have close to 30 people here so far. Is anyone from this particular area? Tell us all about it if you are.
There was that one confirmed fatality. This photo was shared to us of Timothy by Trisha. Now, we spoke to Trisha live on Pittsburgh's Action News 4 earlier this afternoon, where she was expressing her frustration with the plant for not releasing any information. She initially told us that it was her brother's girlfriend who relayed to her that Timothy had been badly injured and taken to an ambulance where his condition was initially reported as not looking good. We still don't know where Timothy was taken after being loaded into that ambulance, but we do know, again,
it seems like the building collapsed on top of them, because when it initially happened, it said that 10 people were basically covered.
he is that one fatality confirmed. Trisha says she was notified shortly after we spoke to her by 2 grief workers from the plant. Now, as for those other injuries reported, we have learned that 5 patients were discharged from here at AHN Jefferson. There are still 2 patients, one at Forbes, one at AGH. Those people have been listed as stable condition. Now, over at UPMC Mercy, we have learned that a 3rd victim was transported there. Again, that is the region's only level 1.
It must have been a very terrifying moment. Bordeaux says, welcome. Thank you all for being here. Please hit the like button for us. All opinions are welcome. Please be respectful with your words in the chat. Okay, Sharon Godbolt is here. Wow, this is so sad. Imagine being in such a large environment and the ceiling comes tumbling down. Marky Mark is back. Thank you for coming back and joining us. Good evening to you as well. JDP says hello to you. Marky Mark. All right. So you already have people welcoming you into the fold. That's a beautiful thing. Eric says hello to you, Sharon. Let's get back to it.
One trauma center and burn center, but we do not know yet the condition of those victims. We are working to learn more. Covering Allegheny County and Jefferson Hills, Yasmin Rodriguez, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
Yasmin, thank you. Our comprehensive team coverage continues right now. Sam Hall has been up in Sky 4 over the scene all day long.
Let's set it up to him for what he's still seeing at this active scene. Sam.
Yes, I can tell you that crews continue their active search and rescue mission for that final unaccounted for person. They have built a large
Seems to be a massive place.
platform here using this lift, and now we have multiple guys up on this platform as Captain Carey will drive us right between these 2 towers. We'll get a really good look down onto the platform as crews continue to search for that final unaccounted for person. We do still have a medical helicopter on scene as well, waiting at the Clairton Medical. I think you see a drone in the situation as well, but there's the platform that they have built as they continue to work back into the structure of this building. Not safe to walk on the building, had to build a platform. Also still have a large pipe that has burst and is pouring water down onto the scene as well. More as we get it from Sky 4.
Just an extraordinary view of.
So the helicopter shows you how massive it is. It's terrifying to think about what happened to these individuals.
An up-close look at those heroes at work. Sam Hall, thank you very much. Right now, there is that active search to find that one person missing following the explosion.
Multiple agencies are working together on this rescue effort.
Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Kaylee Gunderson was our first reporter on the scene in Clairton this morning. Kaylee, you were at that press conference. How is U.S. Steel responding tonight?
Okay, so the name of the company is U.S. Steel. That's a humongous company, heavy in the stock market as well.
Well, they had a very somber tone today, obviously upsetting, concerning, and they want to really reinstill with their workers that they care and that they are trying to figure out what happened here. We were able to talk to the vice president of U.S. Steel, Scott Baquiso, and he talked about how this was really a rescue first, investigate later mission. And he had a special message directly to the employees that were impacted and as a whole, his employees.
All right, we have Nakia in the building. Welcome. Nice to have you here.
You know, our hearts go out to our employees. Safety is our number one priority every day, every shift, 365. So obviously this is a tragedy that we want to understand. We're under the investigation, and we will continue to work not only with the folks behind me, but the families of those that have been affected. Our hearts go out to them, our employees. We have employee assistance program that we have set up at the.
So a lot of people have just came in. What happened today was there's a large explosion not too far from where I live. Actually, I'm in New York, but this happened in Pennsylvania. And it looks like so far, roughly 10 people were affected. One individual, his name was Timothy Quinn, unfortunately lost his life.
Local union hall for anybody that wants to stop in and talk to anybody there as well.
Something that struck me in that statement was that he said he wants to understand what happened here. He talked about how detailed this investigation would be, how it would play out and take some time. Right now, of course, though, the rescue is what's important. They are focused on rescuing and doing their best in that sense before they move on to really getting into the details of what happened here. But what they could tell us today was that batteries 13 and 14 are what exploded. They were able to they were able to shut those down and then get those stabilized. They did say the plant as a whole is stabilized now. There's no reason to be concerned. There's going to be a few elements of.
So you can only imagine the amount of weight, probably tons falling down. So for them to only have one fatality, considering the circumstances, is definitely a plus, because it could have been a lot worse when you factor in the magnitude of the way this whole place came down. As this was happening, we also had another, would you believe it or not, we had another shooting. I hate to say that word on YouTube. But anyway, that happened down in Austin, Texas at Target. Let's take a look at that. It seems that last week they came out with a report saying that in the United States, crime rate is down. But lo and behold, this week, it's been hard pressed. A lot of terrible things have been happening and close to our community as well, close to many of us that are a part of this channel. So let's take a look at what happened at the Target, I believe.
Some other breaking news right now, this time out of Texas, where we have learned in literally the last maybe 3 minutes that 3 people are now dead, shot and killed at the parking lot of this Target store in Austin. Officials have just wrapped up an update, and that is what we've learned. We initially thought 2 people had been killed. That number is now 3. We're learning a bit more.
So it seems we've been having these mass shootings every day of the week. I wonder what's wrong with people.
About the suspect as well, who I believe is now in custody. Aaron Gilchrist will check me on that as he is covering this one for us. Do we know anything else about this suspected attacker, about a motive, et cetera?
So, Hallie, at this point, nothing about a motive, but a wild scene played out in Austin just a little while ago, as you said.
Sharon says, my goodness, I agree with you, Sharon. It's a crying shame.
This news conference with the police department there just wrapped up in the last couple of minutes here, and we've been able to learn a few details about how this all unfolded. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a little after that, local time in Austin, Texas, when police say someone with a gun went into the parking lot at this Target store and started shooting. We know that there were at least 3 people who were shot and killed in this incident. Apparently, the suspect here then jumped into a car and took off from the scene there in Austin, outside this Target store. At some point, wrecked the car that he had taken, and then went into a car dealership and took one of the cars from the dealership, and was eventually caught by police in Austin. As you said, there is a 32-year-old white male suspect who is in custody right now. Police say that there were 2 people.
So these people are out of control. Just over the weekend, we were saying when you're out in public, you have to be very alert. What do you guys do when you're in public these days? Do you take these matters serious? Do you keep your head buried into your smartphone, or do you look around just to make sure you're aware of your surroundings? Tell us what you do. Romley says they must be blaming at Muslim, right? Okay, we haven't seen that so far, but I understand your position. He says, or she says, you people will blame Muslim Islam, right? I don't think that was the first thing that came to most people's minds. When we look at these crimes, we see all sorts of people doing these horrible things. JDP says hello to you, Romley. So you're being welcome with warmth in the chat. So no need to fear. Nikki says, I'm remain very aware of my surroundings. Well, that's good. You have to stay observant, just like Eric says. Eric was out in California. I'm sure he was very observant throughout his travels.
Who died on the scene there. One person, according to the fire department, was taken to a nearby hospital and was pronounced dead at the hospital as well. At this point, we don't know about the motive. That is really, Hallie, the outstanding question right now. Police say that the suspect they have in custody is someone they know, someone who has had some interaction with law enforcement in the past, someone who does have a history of mental health issues as well. They're still trying to figure out exactly, though, what led up to this. Police said
it seems that mental health is out of control because a lot of these cases, at least the most recent cases we've seen that I've covered on the channel, they all mention about mental health and that some of these individuals had a track record. So, and even the family members were speaking out. I think the shooting that happened in Atlanta, the gentleman's, well, I shouldn't call him a gentleman, the guy, his father was crying out saying my son could be doing these things, but it was a little too late. Bordeaux says, when I'm in public, I have my head on a swivel. Okay, that's a good way to move. Red River says, got to stay alert, head on a swivel, and it still doesn't guarantee anything. Exactly. That's right. That's right. Sharon says, I'm constantly looking around when I go out. Okay. Bordeaux says, sometimes I stay in. I think a lot of people are choosing to do that. Zach, welcome in. Nice to have you here. Black supremacists can stay mad. Okay, not sure where that came from, Zach. Nikki says, oops, meant remain. Okay, no problem. We understand the point. When was this? This was at 2 p.m. today.
Don't know if there had been some sort of a confrontation, some sort of conflict in that parking lot, but there.
So a lot of people just came in. Just so you know, today, 2 p.m. in Austin, Texas, they said a white male opened fire and shot 3 individuals. So we're just listening in, folks.
They're trying to figure that out now and come up with what led to this shooting, Hallie.
Aaron Gilchrist, much to follow on that front. We'll check back in with you if we learn anything else. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to stay tuned to see what develops as far as this story go. I noticed with the shooting they had over the weekend, it took about 24 hours before they even stated who the shooter was and gave you some of the background information. So maybe with this particular case, it will be the same way, or maybe we'll know sooner. But either way, we're going to cover it and let you know what's happening. Another big story today is in the case of Epstein. We wonder, why are all of these major news breaking with Donald Trump when the common people, I noticed today in the chat when we were covering Donald Trump's press conference, most people in the audience kept saying, where are the Epstein files, right? Where are the Epstein files? Well, we have some news about that today. A judge has ruled in the case of Epstein, and let's get to it.
It's 10 Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. I'm Ana Cabrera reporting from New York. Let's get right to that breaking news. Just moments ago, a federal judge denying the Justice Department's bid to unseal grand jury records from the criminal case against Ghislaine Maxwell. Epstein's a.
Now, in all fairness, I believe the government knew that this would happen, but I think they said, oh, release the files because they knew it would not be released. That's just my feeling about the matter. You guys can tell us, what do you think? All right, Rocky, thanks for coming in. I believe this is your second time back, or so I believe the name is familiar. Thank you so much. We have Your False Reality. Thank you for being here as well. And we have Alex 007, could be out of anger, adrenaline, continued nonstop anger. The script of MH most be stopped by big channels. Okay. Thank you for your participation and your comment. Dex says, how do you JDP? Okay, so we have quite a few people participating in the comments. Feel free to comment. Also, if you would like to come up, I'm going to drop the link. If you would like to come up and express yourself, feel free to do so. We would love to hear from you. We only ask that you cut your camera on and be very respectable and respectful, because we have so many great people here just trying to have a meeting of the minds. Alex 007 says, I know where Maduro is. I take gold payments. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Scotty Boy says another Obama judge destroying our country. Yes, indeed. Blame Obama. Okay. Eric says, I believe Epstein was CIA. A lot of individuals think that's the case. They try to link him to the Mossad as well. We hear a lot of these different reports. Let's get to this story.
Accomplice, noting in part that the materials do not identify anyone other than Epstein or Maxwell who had sexual contact with a minor. And joining us now for more on this is MSNBC's Ken Delanian and former federal prosecutor Barrett Berger. So, Ken, break this down for us. What are we hearing from this judge?
This was a resounding ruling, Anna, totally repudiating the Justice Department's request to unseal these transcripts, really saying that there are no special circumstances here and it's not in the public interest to violate grand jury secrecy by throwing this stuff out to the public, in part because the judge said these materials would reveal nothing new. They're basically a summary of things that are already in the public record from the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. I'll just read from one of the passages here. A member of the public familiar with the Maxwell trial record, the judge wrote, who reviewed these grand jury materials would learn next to nothing new. He said they do not reveal new venues.
It appears that especially MAGA is not letting these Epstein files go away. What do you guys think? Do you think by now that there's something serious here? There's some there? Or do you think that this is just a story that has no weight to it? Tell us what you think. Eileen Moore says, I figured they would not reveal the Epstein files. I was expecting this ruling as well. I think they used it as a ploy just to throw a little bit of gold to the fans, right? JDP says, hello to you, Scotty. John Edwards says, more Trump distraction. Exactly. There is a lot of distractions going on these days. Alex 007 says, Einstein made his trap. He knew too much. Okay, Epstein, I mean. All right. Alexander Bello says, MAGA wants it released. Yeah, they want to see what's in these files and if it affects Donald Trump, the leader of the free world, right? Eileen Moore says, I am suspicious. So she's suspicious about it. Okay, Nikki says, is this one of Trump's appointed judges? Someone said it was one of Barack Obama's appointed judges. Alan Gardner says, interview the victims. Let's get back to the video.
At which their crimes occurred. They do not reveal new sources of their wealth. He's talking about Epstein and Maxwell. They do not explore the circumstances of Epstein's death, and they do not reveal the path of the government investigation. He further said there's no client list in here. There, as you said, there's no allegation that anyone else had sexual contact with minors. And he is saying that really the only decent legal argument to release these transcripts, this was remarkable, is that it would show that the Justice Department's argument for doing so was totally disingenuous and may have been more about distraction than transparency. Those are the words of a federal judge, Anna.
And so, Bear, what's your reaction to this?
I'm not surprised by this, Anna. It is a very high threshold to unseal grand jury.
So is there anybody in the audience that's surprised? Tell us, are you really surprised that they are not releasing the files? And it puts the Justice Department in a better position because they said, oh, release them. And I believe they said it knowing that it would not happen. It's kind of weird. All right. JDP says hello to John Gilbert and Alan. Eric says, I believe they won't open the files also. Okay. Mashona says, I think it's a big distraction. They're going to put the information out there. We have plenty of things to worry about in this country, right? But most people, they're hard pressed to find out what's in the Epstein files because they think that Donald Trump has something nefarious going on. Gentry says the whole thing stinks of guilt. Okay, tell us why you feel that way. Break it down. Alan says hello. Hello back to you, Alan. Nice to have you here as well. Dead Polar Bear, thank you. Welcome. Nice to have you here. Thank you. And please come back and subscribe and like the video if you like the material. Mashona says the thing is exposing Trump exposes all the other rich people on that list. It will never happen, or at least in my opinion. I saw today that Bill Clinton officially said that he never went to Epstein's Island, although I believe I saw Donald Trump state that Bill had went. And that's one of the singing cries of the MAGA and Republicans. They say that Bill Clinton was at the island 28 times. So not sure where that narrative came from, but Bill Clinton said he did not go.
materials for good reason. We make this promise to witnesses that testify in the grand jury that these are secret proceedings. And so it really has to be a high public need for these kinds of documents to become public. The judge here very clearly found there was not. The public being interested in the story just doesn't meet what the statute requires. What's interesting to me is that a lot of the arguments that DOJ made at the end about why these documents should be released, the judge actually seemed to say support them not being released. DOJ was saying much of this material was already made public during trial, so really what's the harm of releasing it? The judge flipping that right back saying, actually, because this material was largely made public during a very lengthy trial, now there is no need to take this extraordinary step of unsealing these records. So it's not surprising, but I'm sure for many people it will be disappointing.
Yeah, one of the things that stood out in this ruling, as we continue to read through this on page 21, so it's a lengthy ruling, he writes of the Maxwell grand jury testimony that this is not a matter of significant historical or public interest. Far from it. It consists of garden variety summary testimony by 2 law enforcement agents, and the information it contains is already almost entirely a matter of long-standing public record. I mean, Barrett, wouldn't the DOJ have already known this when they asked to have these transcripts made public?
So what do you think? You think this is fishy, folks? What do you think? Alan says, heck no, not surprised. Okay. Mashona says hi to Alan. Kathy Randall, welcome back. It was a ploy by Republicans. They knew the courts would not release those transcripts. Not surprised. But the DOJ has them on her desk. Okay, thank you. That's the same sentiments that I had as well. Thank you, Kathy, for breaking it down. Mashona says, welcome in and thank you for joining the conversation. Did you remember to hit the like button on your way in? Please like, share, and subscribe and support the channel. Thank you. Nikki says Nikki agrees with Mashona. Okay. Wowie says, yeah, but that's a dumb request of the DOJ. That's not how grand juries work. Distraction to save the PDF in chief. All right. Thank you. Gentry says that's a court file, not the whole 300 gigabyte file.
They would have obviously reviewed these documents. And that's what many of us who worked as federal prosecutors have been saying. Grand jury proceedings, by and large, are not as, sexy as many people may think they are. Usually it's not hundreds of witnesses that are testifying for the grand jury. It's 1, maybe 2 case agents that testify, often putting in, large summaries of documents that they've reviewed or people that they've spoken to. Hearsay testimony is allowed in the grand jury, so that's why federal prosecutors are often able to only call 1 or 2 case agents as their witnesses. So the federal prosecutors here would have certainly reviewed these documents. They knew what was in them. Again, this may be some type of, trying to serve the client here, saying the client really wants these to be public and we're getting a lot of pressure. So let's make the motion. But definitely they would have known the substance and known that there wasn't anything so groundbreaking in them.
And so, Ken, we know there's a separate judge considering unsealing documents as well. Could that still happen?
Look, there's every reason to believe that this judge, the judge in the Epstein case, who's considering a similar request, will come to the exact same conclusions, because that was also a summary witness grand jury. Neither of these were investigative grand juries where they called witnesses. These were, again, this was an FBI agent going for 1 day and explaining to the grand jury why there was probable cause to believe a crime was committed, why they should return an indictment. Look, to the extent that there is interesting or titillating information in the FBI files in the Epstein case, they're probably not in this grand jury material. They may still be buried in FBI files somewhere. Things like, files with Donald Trump's name on them or other people's names on them. But like, the FBI gathers a vast amount of material in a criminal investigation, and it stays secret for a reason. It is really invasive of people's privacy. It makes unsupported allegations that were never aired in court. That's why it's secret. So the idea that the government would air all that out to satisfy conspiracy theories that unfounded about the Epstein case, I just don't see that happening at the moment.
And of course, we don't want to forget all of the abuse survivors who also weighed in wanting.
Very few people are talking about the abuse survivors, right? Gentry says that's a court file. Okay, we read that. Alex 007 says that's the goal. do not release any file, just like other history files. I believe that's the common denominator. Eric says, I say he was CIA and CIA will not release the file. There's a list just like they have of a flight log. Okay. Some have came on the channel and showed the actual flight log, and there are big names on the list, I must say. Jim John says, America, where child molesters hold positions and our government walk free. Okay, how sad, if true. Okay, hello to Benny from JDP. Gary Lupton says, I can't say nothing because I don't know nothing. I wasn't there. Okay, that's a good approach to have, I guess. JDP says, hi to you, Gary. Life is not paradise, says Bill Clinton also said he didn't inhale. Okay, all right. Thank you. Mashona says he also never had relations with that woman until he did. They all guilty. They'll need us to run the country if they release the information. Wow, you think that many people will go down into the flames? That's a serious thought. JDP says, LOL, Mashona, ain't that the truth? Alan Gardner says it was lip service. Oh my, how scary.
Some of these transcripts and records to be unsealed. And the judge writes about that, Barrett. The victim's interest in reviewing the grand jury materials appears to be premised on the understandable but mistaken belief that these materials would reveal new information. Had the government's motion made clear that these records are redundant of the evidence at Maxwell's public trial, the victim's responses to the motion to unseal might well have been different. So as we've discussed, this is not unexpected necessarily, since it was just these two witnesses who would be involved in the transcript specifically. But Barrett, what about the other exhibits that were presented to these grand juries? Other documents, police files, interviews, recordings, could that still be revelatory?
It could be. The judge seems to think that's unlikely. But, you know, Anna, the judge points out something that I think gets lost in a lot of these discussions, which is, you know, this has been so traumatic for the victims from day one, not only based on everything they went through, but having to live through a trial and now having all of this information essentially relitigated and brought back up.
The fact that Ghislaine Maxwell was moved to a comfortable prison setting where she can play tennis and entertain herself quite well after being accused and found guilty of these terrible acts, it kind of tells you where this whole situation is going. Reverend Greenback says, let's move on to the next distraction. There's so many distractions, right? Thank you, and welcome back for you as well. We have Leon in the building. Thank you for coming in. Thanks for being here. We appreciate your support. Josh says, absolutely horrible cover for a story that has backing from people to tell us. Okay. Nick says, from Mar-a-Lago to Epstein Island. Oh, wow. They had quite the place to do these terrible things. That's what they say. In fact, one of the girls, a girl named Virginia, says that Donald Trump actually said in the video that we shared last week that the girl was taken from Mar-a-Lago. That came out of the words of Donald Trump himself. That's not just a rumor, folks. He confirmed it. Chance says now Maxwell is going to escape from that low security jail with no fences, and you will never hear from her ever again. Epstein. That sounds like it makes a good plot for a great book. Maybe chance or by chance you could write it. Wouldn't that be awesome? I would love to read it. Gear Jammer is back in the building. Praise the orange man. Gear Jammer loves Donald Trump. All right. Thank you. Josh says, you hosts should be fired. You are the cause of the cover-up. You guys need to be brought to the law. Okay. He wants everybody locked up. Okay. Nick says, from Mar-a-Lago to Epstein Island, Donald and Jeffrey besties. So you think they were best friends? That's actually what Epstein said. He says Donald Trump was his best friend for 10 years. Okay, so that covers that story. Now we're going to get back and see the response of the mayor in Washington, D.C. Remember today, earlier, we covered Donald Trump and the new format they're laying out to cover crime and homelessness in Washington, D.C. Well, the feds say they're tired and sick of what's been happening. There's too much crime. Now, you're going to see in this video that the mayor is going to confirm that crime was actually going down. a lot of media sources is saying that what the president has insinuated is not true, and that maybe there's another plan in store or another reason why they're bringing in the National Guard to police and pretty much having Pam Bondi running the show instead of the local police. So let's have a look at what's happening in this regard as well.
Some other breaking news right now, this time out of Texas, where we have learned.
Okay, so here we go.
Per capita. We're not a state. We don't control the DC National Guard. We don't have senators or full autonomy. Limited home rule gives the federal government
Do we have sound?
the
Can you guys hear
ability
this?
to intrude on our autonomy in many ways. I've said before, and I'll repeat, that I believe that the president's view of DC is shaped
All right, 1 second. Let's see if we can get some sound here. Okay, here we go.
It is also true that we experienced
still
a
don't have
crime
sound.
spike
Can you guys actually hear this or no?
post-COVID. But we worked quickly to put laws in place and tactics that got violent offenders off our streets and gave our police officers more tools, which is why we have seen a huge decrease in crime because of those efforts. We have been able to reverse that 2023 crime spike. This year, crime isn't just down from 2023, it's also down from 2019, before the pandemic, and we're at a 30-year violent crime low. We're not satisfied. We haven't taken our foot off the gas, and we continue to look for ways to make our city safer. We know, however, as most have heard from the president's press conference, that he has prerogatives in DC, unlike anywhere else in the country, including his authority given by our home rule charter to require the mayor, to require me to supply services of the Metropolitan Police Department. And he also has control and the ability to deploy the National Guard. But let me be clear, as our home rule charter is also clear, and the president's executive order restates. Chief Pamela Smith is the chief of the Metropolitan Police.
Okay, so Gear Jammer says, praise the Trump Meister. Okay, thank you for being here. Sleepyhead says, release the files, believe the women. Dead Polar Bear says, LOL, Trump just mad his boy Big, I don't want to say that, got beat up. Okay, Jim John says, files will not be released because Congress, House, Senate, and judges make up majority of the list. That is a sad thought. Alex 007 says, how can we make it safer when the biggest bleep are in Congress? Okay, thank you. Dorinda Perry says, she's one of the reasons January the 6th happened. She's a habitual liar. Talking about the mayor here. Okay, let's get back to it.
Department and its 3,100 members work under her direction. The Home Rule Charter requires the mayor to provide the services of MPD during special conditions of an emergency, and we will follow the law. Though there's a question about the subjectivity of that declaration. In fact, the chief has already provided a high-level liaison and point of contact with the federal government and made those initial contacts. The executive order is also clear that the president has delegated his authority to make requests of us to Attorney General Pam Bondi. I have reached out to Attorney General Bondi and hope to schedule a meeting soon. My message to residents is this. We know that access to our democracy is tenuous. That is why you have heard me and many Washingtonians before me advocate for full statehood for the District of.
Okay, let's get to a few comments. Kiffy Merck says all valid points. Eric says hi to Dante. All right. Sleepyhead says, why are 15-year-olds working at Mar-a-Lago? Very good question. Gear Jammer says, you mean Epstein made a list that said all the people that M-word, little kids. Okay. We don't want to read that one. That might push us to the edge with YouTube policy. Sleepyhead says, vote out the bastards. Okay. All right. That's a good approach. Let's see. Kaj Widecraft says, do your job. Look at the crime rate. It's a disgrace. Are you kidding? Okay, thank you. We have a lot of good expressions here. Let's just be mindful of the YouTube policies. We don't want to break their rules and get suspended in any way, folks.
Colombia. We are American citizens. Our families go to war. We pay taxes and we uphold the responsibilities of citizenship. And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised. I can say to DC residents that we will continue to operate our government in a way that makes you proud. We will balance our budgets. We will deploy our services. Our kids are going to start school on August 25th. And we will work with the federal government to do the things that they should do for our city, including making sure that we have the judges that we need, including making sure that all federal parks are supported, not just with law enforcement, but with other clean and safe activities.
She seems to be pretty sharp. What do you guys think about her so far? Let's see here. We have Bordeaux says, please only use YouTube friendly words in the chat. Okay. Bruno says, what's wrong with a 15-year-old working? Okay. Gear Jammer says, there were no 15-year-olds working for Trump. Okay. Clarification. Gear Jammer says, that girl was 17. I believe I saw that too. At least when she was taken, she was 17. Paul Warner says, I don't know how anyone could complain about extra security. Shaking my head. I thought about that today. I knew someone would say that. Paul, you read my mind. Chance says, DC has been dangerous for 30 years. She's acting like it's a wonderful place. She act like this. Wonderful, folks. Eric says, I believe they will deploy the National Guard to another city soon. I think it's in the works already. Right on, Eric. I'm right with you. Michael says, why hasn't anyone made the connection that Trump was a supplier in some way? Epstein came out of nowhere and knew Trump was a lot. So we can with, we don't want to say that, trafficking of PDFs. Okay, guys, we have to go easy on some of the language and keep it YouTube friendly. JDP says hello to Paul. Jeff Graybill says she's getting, okay. All right. Maura Thompson says Asian children started working as soon as they are in school, age 5. It's good for children to work. It builds the characters, give them experience. Thank you and welcome, Thompson. We really do appreciate having you here. Jobber says remove the unpatriotic act. Okay, let's get back to the video.
And including making sure that our economy is supported by rational federal actions as it relates to the federal workforce, federal workers, and federal property in the District of Columbia. So with that, I want to ask Chief Smith to talk about her interactions with the federal forces, federal police and law enforcement that have been engaged in the
Let me ask you guys a question. Do you think any of this relates to DEI? Tell me what you think. It's starting to shape up like a DEI situation.
District over the last several days, and the strategy that she thinks would be important while we have additional federal police officers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm Pamela Smith, the Chief of Police of the Metropolitan Police Department. And as the Mayor stated, you know, we have a responsibility to support the executive order. And one of the roles that I have is to ensure that we work very collaboratively with our federal partners. I know that most of us know in this room, and those of you that are watching on television, that the efforts of the federal law enforcement officers began in our city on Thursday night. I met with the director of the U.S. Marshal, who has been at that point over.
Okay, Savage Optimist says she's being measured with her speech. I think that's smart. Jeff Graybill says she's nothing. Okay. All right. Hello to Maura from JDP. Thank you. And thank the moderators do such a great job. Thank you guys for all you do. Bruno says DC mayor is a liar. Liar, liar. Okay. Maura says hello, JDP. Alex 007 says if she was 17, then where mom and dad at that time? Good question. Also, her family came out, her brothers. We're talking about Virginia. So, yes, that's a good question. Where were they at that time? Joshua Blodow says, Nancy Pelosi didn't call the National Guard on American citizens. Is Trump taking over the D.C. law enforcement his personal protection in the event citizens do the same thing to him? Thought about that today. That's a very good point. Thank you, Joshua, for making that point. Willard says they need to military police. It looks like that's what they're trying to do. They're getting in front of the police. Mashona says the opinions expressed in the chat are that of the person expressing them. It do not reflect the views of the host. Thanks for joining and welcome in. Okay, thank you. Aryan Blitz King says Trump is making us BS. So same crap, different day. Okay. Alex 007 says we all need to prepare for what's coming. It doesn't smell good. All those distractions and the Middle East mess. Okay, that's a great point. Jeff Graybills back says, why did it cost the American people to have Black Lives Matter painted on the streets? Okay, great point. I remember that came out. Aryan says, release the Epstein files. I think you'll be waiting until Christmas for that. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going away anytime soon, though. People want to know if the president was implicated in any of these nefarious actions. Aryan Blitz King says DC mayor is awesome. Okay, we have different takes on the mayor. Okay, so some like her, some don't. Let's see.
Seeing the operational component of how the federal resources will be allocated and deployed around our city. With that conversation, it was very, very important for me to ensure that not only do we work collaboratively with our federal partners, but we offer up areas across our city where we can work with them in areas where we know that we want to reduce crime. And so that was the effort on yesterday. We spent roughly about an hour just kind of planning and talking through what that's going to look like. On the heels of
Is there anyone in the audience from the DC area? If so, tell us and perhaps even come up and talk about it.
Announcement from the president today regarding the executive order, and my directive from the mayor is that we will begin more intense planning efforts after I leave this press conference. I've also met with one of the other liaisons that have been assigned to work with the U.S. Marshal, along with myself, regarding the efforts around the city for how we will allocate resources. What I will say is this: our relationship with our federal partners is not new. We do this on a daily basis. We are very, very, very much in tune to having federal law enforcement officers working with us on our capital area regional task force. Our federal partners work with us, especially on some some of our warrant executions. They work very, very closely with us with our Violent Crime Suppression Division. And it is my intent and my police department's intent to continue those efforts. What you will see is an enhanced presence. The second thing that's really important to me, and I'm speaking directly to our community, is that we have a relationship with our community that is very important to us, our community members. And so having our Metropolitan Police Department working alongside of our federal partners who have come into the city to really help us assess and deal with the crime, that some of the crime spikes that we have, we will work alongside them, but intentionally, we want to make sure that our community understands that we are there. We're going to be boots on the ground. If you see something, again, say something. We value those relationships, our community members, and I want to say thank you for all the work that you've done with the Metropolitan Police Department up to this point. Those relationships are very, very important to us, and we want to continue to build upon that and continue to enhance that. I'll turn it back over to Mayor Bowser now.
Okay, we'll take a few questions.
Okay, StreamYard likes to mute. Chance says, yes, DEI don't work anymore. There's high crime. DEI is involved. Good observation. I believe that too. Dorinda Perry says, I'm out. I can't listen any more lies. Y'all have a blessed evening. Okay, so these are all lines. Okay, she don't like what's being said. Female Boxer 336, welcome in. Mr. Big Balls from Doge got his butt kicked, and now Trump declares war on DC. Okay, thank you. Nice to have you here. Come back and chat some more. Aryan Blitzkrieg says, wouldn't it have been great if Trump had called the National Guard on January the 6th? Great point. A lot of people feel that way. Dead Polar Bear says, I saw that almost all the stats for major crime in DC. Okay, and the chat just went far gone. Let's see. The chat is moving so fast. We lost it there. We'll try to find that comment again at some point. Let's see. Okay, so Paul says the National Guard is more of a deterrent of doing crimes. Okay, Joshua Blowdown says they're targeting 16 to 17-year-olds. The proof of that is voter pre-registration for the GOP. Great point. Thank you, Joshua. Aryan Blitzking says you'll be waiting a lot longer for the Epstein files to come out. Trump wants to create distraction. I see a lot of distractions. I'm definitely with you, Aryan, on that. Wishful Thought says schematics. Okay. Truth Be Told says DC mayor a fraud. Are you a lawyer? I'm from DC. Okay, no, I'm not a lawyer, an attorney, but nice to have you here. JDP says hello. Wishful Thoughts. Truth be told, if you want to come up and tell us a little bit about what's happening in DC, we would love to hear from you. Feel free to come right up. If anyone wants to come up and chat and tell us how you feel, we definitely welcome you. Just be very respectful and presentable. Make sure you have your camera on. Joshua says, more specifically, conditioning 16 and 17-year-olds. That would be the only reason to continue to play old news feeds and reject opposing views. Okay. All right. Uda on Go is here. Salute to you, Uda. Nice to have you. Uda is a solid brother with a solid channel. He covers cases similar to myself. He covered the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Eric says the National Guard really stopped a lot of possible looting and uprising in the downtown Los Angeles area 5 or 6 weeks ago. It did help. Okay, so they are constructive. Okay, good deal. Let's get back to the video.
Questions, and I'm joined by members of my public safety team, including Deputy Mayor Apia and Chief John Donnelly. Yes, please identify yourself.
Mayor Bowser, Campbell Robertson, New York Times. Do you think this was inevitable, or do you think there are things the city could have done, or the council to prevent the sake of government?
This is I don't know. I can't answer that question, and I think that's a question that you're familiar with the rhetoric about the city and how long it goes back, and we also know that we're not experiencing a spike in crime, but a decrease in crime. Yep.
Mayor,
Okay, so she contradicts what Donald Trump said. Donald Trump said earlier today, you guys heard it. We went over it around midday. He said that crime had spiked up, but the mayor says that the crime actually went down. Mashona says, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on the great content. Eric says, I thought Trump would have issued a curfew today. That sounds like something that he would do. Alex 007 says, we must prepare our youth for the future, for what's coming, and a strong community to help each other. Good positivity, Alex. I love it. Chance says, you know who's not complaining about DC getting cleaned up is the 14-year-old thugs that civilize black people. Okay. Thank you for your comment. JDP says, want to join the hosts in the conversation? Turn on your camera and be respectful and join us. Just folks, hit the link and you can come right up and we can chat. Aryan says, Trump is destroying our nation. Okay, a lot of people feel that way, although a lot of people feel the opposite. Rick Russell says, Nancy admitted it was her fault. She didn't call the National Guard on camera. So Rick says it's not Trump's fault. It was Nancy Pelosi that was hedging that day, not the president. Eric says, no cash bail really hurt Los Angeles and many other cities. I do think the National Guard will be coming to a city near you. Aryan says the National Guard is wasted. Could you explain that, Aryan? What do you mean? Are you saying they're drunk, or are you saying that they're incapable of doing anything? Wadzoo says Trump did ask the National Guard on January 6th. Pelosi denied the request. Okay, a lot of people feel that it was Pelosi. That was wrong. Rebecca Young says, no, Trump is saving our nation. Okay, so we have people pushing back, saying that Trump is a good man, a good president. Okay, let's get back to the video.
You and the chief are talking about partnerships, the federal partners who are coming in. The president is talking about a takeover of the city's police department. Where does the chief fit in with Terry Cole, who's the new federal commissioner of the DC Police Department?
Nothing about our organizational chart has changed, and nothing in the executive order would indicate otherwise. So the chief of police reports through the deputy mayor to the mayor of the District of Columbia, and the two people I think that were identified in the presser report to Attorney General Bondi. The executive order makes clear that all requests for MPD services, the president delegates to Attorney General Bondi.
So Terry Cole?
I don't recall the names. Yes.
The Metropolitan Police Department. Where does he fit in that?
That's a question for the Attorney General, I think. Yep.
Mayor, to what extent are you planning to cooperate in this new framework, or is the city planning anything to prevent this from happening, including any legal action?
Well,
from what I saw in the news, these individuals had no clue that Donald Trump was going to do this. They did not receive a warning, folks. I wonder why. Rebecca Young says, don't turn a blind eye. Crime is up everywhere. Okay, I believe that. Anthony says they destroyed the most beautiful city in the world, San Francisco. Okay, never been there. Paul Warner says Trump is saving other countries, not just ours. He deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. 100. Okay. Thank you, Paul, for your input. Chance says Trump is definitely saving America. New York City is empty again after getting rid of all those illegal aliens. Thanks, President Trump. A lot of Trump supporters here tonight. Reverend Greenback says the greatest president. Okay. Anthony says liberals are the enemies of this country. Okay. All right. So we have people pushing from both sides, but everybody's getting along. Fates Karma is here. It's always great to see you, Fates. Hey, y'all. Hope your night is going good. It's going quite well. Thank you. Hope yours and your wife is doing the same. Trina says the National Guard does not want to just stand there. They are trained to do real jobs. Okay. They want to get busy. So what happens when a person commits a crime and the National Guard roll up? What does that look like? I think Mashona said earlier, What kind of charge will the person get? Will it be a federal charge or a local charge? These are a lot of questions that need to be answered. And the watchers want to know. Alex 007 says this president is 3 to 4 steps ahead of what most people are thinking. Okay, so you think Donald Trump is ahead of the curve, ahead of the game? Let's get back to it.
I think all legal, I think you probably saw the Attorney General for the district, Brian Schwab's a statement about reviewing all legal matters, and I think those matters are under review. The plain language, however, of the Home Rule Charter indicates that there is a declared emergency. It allows the president, it authorizes the president to make those requests. And it says the mayor shall comply with those requests. So, yeah.
Are there any concerns that, with this rhetoric that we have MPD, the National Guard, possible other law enforcement agencies on the ground, that there will be confusion about who's in charge, who these officers answer to, and how people should respond if approached by individuals?
Well, we should note, and we have been advised, and we will continue to make this clear that this is needed in our city, that all law enforcement be identifiable by a uniform, a badge, a jacket, so that people know that they are law enforcement. And the chief, in her coordination with the
Okay, so they wanted to know how can the law enforcement and the National Guard be identified for the local people. So good answer. Anthony says all those billions is spent on illegal immigrants. We could have built better school systems and more hospitals and taken care of the homeless problems and even better streets and infrastructure. Okay, Trina says MAGA must admit that it was Trump who didn't mobilize the National Guard on January the 6th. Can't say Pelosi was in charge. Okay, great. Nice pushback. Eric says they definitely need more police in the Houston area. I wouldn't be surprised. Houston is one of the places that was mentioned earlier by someone thinking that the National Guard might pull up in Houston soon. They might be in your town too. Alex 007 says it's a federal charge if they move the National Guard. No summons on that. I think the president can only deploy the National Guard for 30 days before Congress has to pick it up, right? Michael Lee says, when will the National Guard be deployed to Houston, Miami, Oklahoma City, red cities with high crime rates? You mean red cities have high crime? According to Donald Trump, it's always the blue states, right? The blue cities. KM says, Trump is the man in charge of saving our country. All right. A lot of positive thoughts about Donald Trump. Trina says the National Guard can't do anything. It's against the law. All right. Maybe we can have someone break that down. Break it down for us, Trina. Nonya says, I doubt the NG is just standing. Anthony says we need Trump for another 20 years or people like him to save and bring a normal back to our country. A lot of people are happy with what Donald Trump is doing. I mean, ultimately, I guess they're fighting crime, but I guess it's the approach that has people up in arms, right? Okay, Alex 007 says they are community servers as well, and by law, they must identify themselves. Okay, so they have to identify. Anthony says, we now have the most dangerous places in the world, our major cities, to liberalism, vetting the most dangerous criminals back out of the streets, and no bail laws, trying to bring racism into it. Okay, nice expression. Rebecca Young says Pelosi was definitely at fault. Hope it comes out. Okay, Pelosi is backing out of the picture, folks. Joshua says Trump could have showed up at the rally and told everyone to go home, and I bet they would have. Okay. Anthony says, except for DEA. Okay. Dan Fry says, Anthony, you know immigrants are a net positive on the economy, right? Okay. We have some great debates going back and forth, folks. You have to love it. Okay. Thank you. Let's get back to the video.
The kind of the command on the federal side will make clear how the protocols for response. And if there's any additional information we need to get out to the public, we will. But the main point is this: everybody should follow the law, the police and the community. And that's the case now. It was the case last week, and it was the case the week before that. So nothing has changed about that. Yeah.
Would you be able to respond to the statement that came out from the DC Police Union? They come out with saying that they stand with the president and that they have also said crime is spiraling out of control. They're also calling for the president to go even further and repeal some of the legislation that DC Council passed.
I'm afraid I haven't seen that statement yet, so I don't want to comment on it. We have, worked very closely with the DC Police Union. Some issues they've advanced, I've totally agreed with. Others I haven't. One thing that we are squarely supportive of is making sure that our department can recruit more officers and get to a number that I think we need. We've worked cooperatively with them on recruitment and retention activities, on some other changes to the law that were very objectionable to the union and our members, and we will continue to do that. Yeah.
Peace and blessings, man.
Okay, so let's see here. Dan Fry says, incorrect, Rebecca. Okay, Trina says National Guard is subject to federal laws like the Posse Act, which prohibits the use of military force to enforce civilian laws. Okay. Anthony says, why are these people not brought up on the charges? I fail to understand that while liberals should be accountable for all the destruction they did using the Antifa and Black Lives Matter organizations. Okay. Joshua says, in the government, don't forget the government. We would love the government to follow the law. It's not going to happen. Rebecca Young says, legal immigrants help economy, not illegal immigrants. Okay, we have a lot of good expressions coming. Keep them coming, folks. Nonya says, the National Guard can enforce laws, but its role is primary to respond to state emergencies and support federal missions. Okay. Trina says, National Guard standing around isn't fighting anything but sleep, a waste of our money. Okay.
In what way, if any, does this change your strategy in terms of your relationship with the president? You've been pretty cooperative, pretty diplomatic, but he's saying one thing about crime, you're stating facts, and he's still infringing on your role as mayor. So, as far as your relationship and your strategy, what do you intend to do as far as, engaging with them?
Well, we engage with all officials that impact the district, and that includes the president. So I don't expect that would change from our part.
But as far as, if I may follow up.
Sure.
Are you going to go what some might consider a bit harder and pushing back against what he's trying to do? Will your tenor change or intensify?
My tenor will be appropriate for what I think is important for the district. And what's important for the district is that we can take care of our citizens. And if people are concerned about a president's ability to have the MPD police department be responsive to the Department of Justice, the time to address that is when we're talking about statehood for DC. If people are concerned about the president being able to move the National Guard into our city, the time to do that would have been when the Congress had a bill that it could have given control of the DC National Guard to DC. So there are things that when a city is not a state and not fully autonomous and doesn't have senators, that the federal government can do. Yep.
Okay, so let's get back to a few more comments. We have Anthony says, liberals don't follow the law. They make their own laws. Okay, we lost that one. They make their own laws. They make their own holidays. They have their own agenda, had been filling their own pockets with tons of cash, billions. Okay, so the liberals are responsible for it all. Chance says, if you know anything about the armed forces, they take the orders from the commander-in-chief, which is Donald Trump, even the National Guard. Right. Good point. Bidenomics says, thank God for Trump. Okay, a lot of people really like Trump tonight. Lee Higgs says, she's so full of it. Okay. All right, let's see here. We have Don Fry says, illegal immigrants give away more to the economy than to take out. You've been gaslit to think that. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan Fries. Eric says, please like and share the video. Chance says, all police officers identify themselves. ICE don't have to identify themselves. They're not police. They're just agents like FBI agents. Now, let me tell you guys something that I saw, because I covered here in New York. I covered the No Kings protest. And by the end of the night, I saw ICE agents rolling up. And also, when there were a lot of protests, I was basically covering it from a media standpoint. But whenever I saw the ICE agents roll up, most of those agents were Hispanic and they spoke Spanish. Okay, keep that in mind. So most of these guys that the New Yorkers were complaining about, ICE agents rolling up, knocking people in the head and busting windows and punching them and all this. That's what the local New Yorkers made such a fuss about. But again, these agents that we would see mostly would be Hispanic. For whatever that's worth to you, it is what it is, folks. Trina says the National Guard cannot enforce anything. They're just, stool pigeons? Okay, Anthony says liberals don't follow the law. They make their own laws. Okay, we read that already. Let's find something new here. Mashona says, welcome in and thanks for joining. We want to hear from you. We just ask that you be respectful to each other and watch your language in the chat and respect the YouTube policies. Anthony says, don't underestimate liberals. They're extremely cunning, very highly educated, and they are very powerful today. Like vast resources, they are the threat to this country. Okay, Eric says, so true, Mel. Yes, indeed. If you look at the stats of the ICE agents, a lot of them, they speak fluent Spanish. And believe me, a lot of those men were Hispanics. Okay, YTH says, need to stay positive or nothing will ever change. Amen. Okay, Reverend Greenback says, yep. Bordeaux says, yes, let's be positive. Yeah, positivity is the way, folks, as we have a meeting of the minds. Anthony says, don't underestimate liberals. Okay, we went through that already. All right, let's get back to the video.
Yep. You at times in President Trump's first term were more confrontational with him, especially in 2020. You've tried to be more cooperative this time. Any second thoughts about that approach? And are you planning any sort of defiance, symbolic or whatever, in light of this?
Well, I would refer you to the law. Home Rule Charter, he referred to it. I would refer you to the executive order. And so everything that we have said maintains my authority given by the Home Rule Charter. Yep.
Josh Chapin, Channel 7. I just want to be clear also that this ramp up, this emergency we're talking about, is a brief period. It's like a 30-day period. Am I right?
The charter gives him the ability to do it for 30 days. Yes.
So that means cooperating with the, whatever he wants to do.
Well, it means that we follow the law, that the MPD follows the law as well as all of the federal officials who are here. It's also important and we will do this in our communications with them, understand like what they're looking to see. The fact that we have more law enforcement and presence in neighborhoods, that could not, that may be positive if people are, if it's a positive action. That's what the executive order says. Yeah, Mark.
A couple of questions. One, do you know, will the National Guard be armed?
I don't know.
And then,
so he asked her, will the National Guard be armed? She says she doesn't know. I would imagine they will be in the tough streets of DC. JDP says, enjoying what you're watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and turn the notification to be notified for upcoming shows. Thank you so much. Reverend Greenback says, Trump mentioned at least a dozen names with ties to his current administration that have been killed or brutally attacked. Okay. All right. Dan Fry says DC's crime has been plummeting for 3 years now. So that's contrary to what the president was saying earlier today in his speech. Alex 007 says, refer you to the law. Her authority doesn't know the law. Oh, my Jesus. Okay. MP is back. Welcome back, MP. MP says, I love Trump, by the way. Okay. Bodo says, yes, we are glad you are here. YT. MP says, why has DC set up the stats on all-time low crime and yet recapped her earlier sayings otherwise? Okay. YT says, I'm glad I found your channel. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you like it. Please hit the like button for me. Hit it for us. And also, if you can, subscribe to the channel. And as they say, hype us up. We really do appreciate it. We really do believe that. We do this every day, so we try to bring you the latest news so you don't have to go looking for it. Chance says, that's true. Most of the ICE agents are Hispanic. That's real talk. I saw them bouncing out of their vans, and believe me, they're not there to shake your hand. They're there to, I've seen some rough things. That's all I'll say. Alex 007 says, imagine our founding fathers and their era. Probably was much different, right? Joshua says, I appreciate what you're doing. You're allowing people's voices to be heard. Freedom of speech forever. That's indeed. They can't take away our voice, right? Thank you, Joshua. Debbie says, and please hit a like and subscribe if you like the material, if you haven't subscribed already. Debbie says, martial law is about to take place. Only way to get under control. Okay, they're going to force it. Where is Jasmine Crockett? I saw her today. She was speaking out, and also she's taking a lot of heat from Donald Trump. He does not like her right now. Living in San Diego says, look at FBI crime stats, not DC cop numbers. Okay, Chance says DC crime is not the problem. The problem is the adult criminals are making minors do their work. Okay. Reverend Greenback says there are many liberal channels. This one is a respectable one. Okay. We've been labeled as liberal. Alex 007 says, I like it around here. Keep it respectful. Yes, indeed. Devious Chris says, Dan Fries, police fines are not a tax. It's a penalty that only affects the poor inversely. Okay, thank you.
What if the Attorney General directs the Chief of Police to redirect sources to do something that you and the Chief disagree with? For instance, redirect resources from east of the river to the federal enclave or something like that. Will you comply with, you say you're going to follow the law, you say you want to be cooperative. What if you get a directive from the White House with the Attorney General that you just steadfastly don't agree with and think it's the wrong move and would jeopardize public safety in other neighborhoods? Will you comply?
I don't have any reason to think that at this point, Mark. So I don't want to speculate about that. The executive order, as is the Home Rule Charter, is pretty clear that the directives have to be, the requests have to be related to federal purposes.
And can I ask, the president threatened to use not just the National Guard, but the military, to bring the United States military, federal troops into the District of Columbia if needed. Can you respond to that threat? I mean, we're in uncharted waters already. A lot of people.
All right, Dan Fries says more taxes, more law enforcement will raise taxes. Okay, Swamp Fox News is here. What's up, fam? Shout out to you too. Thank you for your great support. Anthony says, have a good day. Nice to have you here, Anthony. Come back and check us out sometime. It's nice to have you. YT says, I personally don't put myself in political party. I take a positive spin on everything. People have to understand the process. Okay, Swamp Fox News has gifted a membership to someone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's amazing. Your support is fabulous. Chance says, AOC and Jasmine Crockett calmed down tremendously. They don't want to lose their seats in Congress. I believe you make a good point. JDP says, thank you to Swamp Fox News for gifting a membership. And Swamp Fox says, my pleasure. Okay, we're going to listen to a little bit more of this, folks, and we're going to call it a night. Before we end tonight, we will talk about the stock market and what's happening for those of you who are looking to invest or learn more about it.
People are seeing this as the first step in an assault on following the rule, which the president has threatened. He's been making these threats since last year, and now he's carrying through with them. There's no reason to believe he won't go further. What do you say to the president about his threats to bring the military, not just the military?
We don't, I think I speak for all Americans. We don't believe it's legal to use the American military against American citizens on American soil. I'm not a lawyer, and but I think that's fairly widely held.
So what do you guys think? Do you think the president is trying to use the military against Americans? What do you think about that? I would love to hear from you. If anyone would like to come up, feel free to come up. We have a few more minutes left before we end the show tonight. Feel free to come up and express yourself. I would like to know, what do you think? Do you think that's the overall plan is for the president to take control of the military, more so from the standpoint of controlling or keeping the people away from him, as some of you have expressed earlier tonight? Someone said that maybe the president he's worried that people are going to turn on him like they did for January the 6th, and he's setting things in place. Do you guys agree with that? Tell us what you think. Bill Baker says, no, she is a liar. Alex says, it's the Third Amendment. Okay. JDP says hello to Bill. Sheila Lynn says it's not about stopping violence. It's about control. Okay. All right. Thank you, Sheila. Nice to have you here. Keep commenting, keep coming back, and like and subscribe if you like the material. Eric says a lot of those Hispanic ICE agents are bounty hunters and bail bondsmen from other cities and have been given a temporary license to operate. Thank you for that inside information, Eric, giving us a little history on it. Trina says Trump is turning the military against his own citizens to distract from his illegal involvement with Epstein and minors. Seems that they have turned up the heat within these last couple of weeks, but most of the American people still want to know what's going on with the Epstein files. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind as well. YT says he has the authority. I don't like to see it happen. It's just getting so out of control. Breathe and think of a solution. I like your approach, YT. She says unlawful citizen by big difference. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, a little bit more, and then we're going to move on.
Fact. And so, but we've seen them move, I think, active military into California. So it's a question. We've seen active military on the borders of DC some years ago. And we don't believe that our military should be used against American citizens. Yes.
Mayor Bowser, can you talk a little bit about the communication that you did receive before this morning? Did you know what this...
Alex says she doesn't know the basics. Surprisingly shocking.
This announcement was going to be before today. And can you just talk about the communication writ large before today? And secondarily, what do you say to DC residents who wanted to hear more from you, specifically in the last 5 days, being forthright, speaking to press and media? Can you just...
DC residents know I'm forthright. That's not a question.
Okay, YT is taking off. Nice to have you here. Says have to jet. See you tomorrow, sir. Was a pleasure for the brief 10-minute. God bless. Shout out to you. Look forward to chatting again with you tomorrow.
DC residents know that, and this press corps should know I speak to you all the time. So you should know that as well. And your question was, when I did not know that the request of MPD would be made. I believed that they would announce that they were going to call up the National Guard. I had one brief phone call related to the National Guard issue over the weekend. Yes. Can you identify yourself? Okay.
So Trina says she does know what she's talking about. So we have some pushback on that, folks.
Chief Smith, the DC Police, working with officials, and are you concerned that any federal official overseeing the DC Police Department is not going to know the city as well as Chief Smith and your officers?
Chief Smith oversees the MPD and all of the requests and coordination for the federal request. I don't really have a doubt that that is going to, among those officials who are law enforcement officials who have experience working together, I don't have a big concern about that communication and coordination happening. Who hasn't? Yep.
Hi, Emma Huber with the Washington Post. During the news conference this morning, President Trump spoke about how he wanted to empower DC police to hit back harder. Are you aware of any changes in the works to MPD's use of force policies? And does that kind of rhetoric, how do you feel about that kind of rhetoric?
Our police officers are highly professional, well-trained officers that we support with training throughout their careers. We're proud of where our department has come from in terms of their level of professionalism. So they're trained in constitutional policing, and that is our expectation. Yes. Hold on, you passed the question one more.
Just to follow up on that.
Yeah.
So will they still be fully subject to local regulations when it comes to use of force, body cameras while under federal patrol, MPD officers?
MPD reports to the chief of police, and they are subject to DC and local laws, as well as federal laws.
And that'll continue even under this plan?
Yes. Yes.
So that was a good question about body cameras and so forth. Seems like they're going to keep the same standards.
You said earlier that they did not tell you about this announcement before it happened today.
Okay. Mashona says, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on the great content. Joshua says, if this is labeled as a liberal channel, where are the conservatives? Because anyone, okay, we lost that. Okay, because anyone can chime in, and maybe this is the only place where liberals are allowed to speak out and be heard. Okay, we don't have a label on this channel, so I'm not sure what that's about. No labels, no labels. Chance says she's a DEI hire. She doesn't know her job. She's there because she's black. Calm down. I'm a black man saying this. Okay, and again, that's how I open up. I feel like that this move is another way to counter the DEI. So I think we're on the same page a bit there. Trina says she does not know what she's talking about. Okay. Bordeaux says no labels. That's right. We're free. We don't subscribe to labels. Labels put you in a box. We don't want to be in a box, folks. But we can chat, we can get along, and we can have a meeting of the minds, right? People change. Life is like water. It's a constant flow, but sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. Fate's Karma says, scroll up. Both sides have been commenting the whole live. Absolutely. It's hard to tell who's who because everybody just commenting the truth, right? Laura Hennessy says, total bullshit, keeping the client list. Let them blackmail those PDFs that are all running so many, ruining children's lives. Okay, thank you for the comment, Laura. Nice to have you here, and to see your comments is amazing too, right? Okay, one last shot of this and we'll call it a night.
Okay. Did the White House or the president bring up their concerns with crime before last week?
The president talks about crime all the time.
Specifically in DC?
Yes. Have you not heard the president from the campaign trail? In every conversation I had with him, we're always briefing the president on our progress.
Okay, so that's enough of that, fool. I think we get the point. So, guys, let me ask you a question. Do you feel like that this is needed in some of the bigger cities throughout about America, like Chicago, when it comes to Baltimore? Would you like to see the federal agents take control and also have let's say, the National Guard policing the streets along with your local police. What are your thoughts? Tell us what you think. In conclusion, before we end, I'll entertain a few of those comments if you guys choose to answer. Kenny says federal judges probably on that list. That's why he blocked it. Okay, that would be terrible. Eric says to a certain level. I think that's moderate. Thank you, Eric, for that expression. Now, when it comes to the stock market, we see that the stocks are really moving up, even though there are various tariffs that are happening. But I will give you guys a point of interest if you want to do some research. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are the big players of the mortgage market, mortgage-backed securities. They're these. So when you purchase a home, that mortgage that you're paying into turns into a security on the stock market. Some of the biggest players of the game was Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Well, if you do some research, you'll see that the president is thinking about privatizing those two companies. Now, I own a lot of stock in both of the companies. I bought in around $2. Now, I think Freddie Mac is at $7 and Fannie Mae is around $10. If the president privatized, there may be a possibility of great gain. We do not know, but it is worth doing some research because there are many ways that he could go with it. But according to the news that came out today, it looks like he's leaning toward it heavy. And when I say he, I'm talking about the president of the United States, none other than Donald Trump. Now, if the stock is privatized, there's a good chance that the wealth could be humongous. But again, we do not know. So the more research you do, you might be in a great position to get in at $7. Recently, as of June of 2024, I had posted SoFi. SoFi was at $6 and some change. Now it's up over $23 a share. So that was tremendous gain. Also, Rocket Lab at $3. I think I posted it. Now it's up to $40 to $50. So sometimes, depending on the companies, if you can do your research and really peer into the company and just understand in your spare time, perhaps you could just learn more about how the market works. And in many cases, even if you buy one stock and you could just monitor it, and by doing that, I find that you'll understand how the market works to a limited degree, because you'll say, oh, today the stock is up. Why? Look at the news. What's pushing the stock up? Look at the financials. You'll see that you'll have quarterly earning reports on each company. Now, here's another thing you can do and really take it seriously. I shared about 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump had posted, or he did a video, and he spoke about 3 companies, NVIDIA, AMD, right? And Palantir. And if you look at those companies now, they have gone up. And a lot of that, in fact, AMD and NVIDIA said that they're going to give 15% of their earnings to the United States. So with news like that, you continue to see the companies rise. So I'm just saying, when you have the time to do research, these are some good companies for you to look into. And at some point, you might find the need to invest in it or speak to your financial advisor and say, hey, look, what do you think about these companies? So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, I would advise you to, if you can, do research into those 2 companies. At $2, I told a lot of my friends to buy in, and they actually did. And already we're up to $7, I think, on Freddie Mac and $10 on Fannie Mae. So that's a little tip before we end out tonight. And still, with SoFi being at $23, I think even on this channel, when I first started mentioning SoFi, in fact, Michonne, I believe you even looked into it at $13 when I told you about it. We're up $10 per share. If you bought 1,000 shares, if you bought 100 shares, whatever you bought, you saw a $10 gain. You almost doubled in the time that yes, Michonne, I see. I told you about it. I had posted it, and I know you told me you bought it, and I remember it being around $13. So anyway, guys, that's a little free information. This is what I do every day, all day, and I do it quite well. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, not trying to give you financial advice, but I am trying to encourage you to not just listen to people who are saying, oh, do day trading, and then they lose money. And now they're so sad they never want to invest again. I hear those stories all the time. But there are different ways for the long run, because most of you probably have a 401k, but most of you probably don't know what's in your 401k. And you're leaving it up to your asset manager, who you probably don't even know, to handle your finances. And then when you retire, most people don't even think about their 401k until maybe they're trying to buy a home and they borrow against it for the down payment, or let's say they're trying to do some renovations on their home. They might pull money out of their 401k, but most people don't take the time to understand what's going in. And I think that that's not a wise way to move forward, especially when this is the money for your retirement. So I would say each day that you can, because right now, whether you like Donald Trump or not, the market is definitely pushing, even with these tariffs that he's spilling out, right? So that should tell you something. And another thing is Tesla is up too, which I happen to own tons of Tesla, contrary to what most people might say or think about Elon Musk or Donald Trump. That's an emotional, that's on the other side. That's not how you make money. That's how you make your feelings, right? But when it comes to making money, you have to move with intelligence, and you have to understand how to read the numbers. And we live in a world now where information is at your fingers. And if you take the time to really examine how to move forward in any field, you can pretty much study your way into understanding, right? You'll learn enough, as they say, to be dangerous. So that's the thought for tonight. I like to just end on a financial note. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. A lot of you do. I'm not pushing this as a service or anything of that nature. It's free game, free knowledge. And Mashona, who happens to be one of the magnificent moderators, when I told everybody to buy SoFi, or I mentioned SoFi, she bought it right away, and she's already up $10 a share. Now, when it comes to SoFi, the individual that's running the show, Anthony Noto, when he came to the company, he came over from Twitter, right? He came from Twitter. And when he came to SoFi, they gave him a deal that he gets his money when the stock hits $45 a share. So right now we're at $23. I bought most of my shares around $5 and $6, thousands of shares. And now we're at 23. Now, when we get to 45, I have to make another type of decision, because sometimes what we saw last week when SoFi hit $25, the stock went back down to 20, because what happened? People started to sell off because they wanted to take their profits. That's not the place where I wanted to take my profits, so I didn't do that. But here's the key. It went to 25, right? When it fell back down to 19, I buy more. When it goes back up, you're making more. So the key to this thing, and I'm only giving you my opinion, right? When Donald Trump became president and Elon Musk was there and everybody was wondering, like, what's happening with Doge? Are these guys crazy? Most people felt like the sky was falling. So let me give you an example of NVIDIA. NVIDIA fell down to $100 a share, right? That's when I started buying. When the market's down and everybody else is sad and blue, that's when you buy. You don't buy high, you buy low. You buy low and sell high. But most people who probably have serious cash hold it for the long run, but that's just each case is case by case scenario. But NVIDIA, when it fell to 100, I think NVIDIA is now 180. So now we're up $80 a share since 100. Man, I could tell you guys some serious stuff here. I hope some of you are paying attention. I'm showing you how this money thing works. So thank you guys for tuning in. I wanted to leave you with some thoughts, but I still think with SoFi, there's much more to go, because I believe that Noto is going to potentially reach his goal of 45. I don't even need to get to 45. If you buy, let's say 100 shares, that's good. You buy 1,000 shares, but if you buy 10, 20,000 shares at $5 and it goes to $45 a share, then you just do the math. Now, not everybody can do that, but I'm just giving you an idea of when you have spare time, you can't sleep. These are concepts that you can learn and also teach your kids. It's powerful stuff when you can actually make money while you're sleeping in the stock market. Alex says NVIDIA will keep going up. Don't get mad if drop a little, it will sling up. Good point. I'm with you 100%. I own a lot of NVIDIA. And thank you, folks. I hope that this little tip inspired at least one person to do some more research when it comes to the market, to put a few more shekels in your pocket, right? It's amazing. I was on Facebook telling people, listen, SoFi, people were getting sick of me probably saying SoFi was $5, $6. SoFi, folks, you're going to be happy. SoFi, if you just get some SoFi. Some people bought, and now they're seeing the benefit from $5 to $23. And not only that, Rocket Lab was at $2 a share, $3 a share, and now it's at $50, $44, $50 a share. That's beautiful work, folks. Good night, and I appreciate all of you guys for tapping in, tuning in. We'll be back on tomorrow for lunch. We're going to see what's hot in the news. Now, yeah, Eric, you're keeping me on the mic. Robo-taxi. I'm looking forward to investing in Robo-taxi. I would like to have about 5 of those. That's when I'll cash out of the market and I'll buy 5 of those robo-taxis. I'm just waiting on the robo-taxi. I'm more into the robo-taxi than I am the robots. I don't like the idea of those robots walking around the house. No, I'm just joking. Here's another thing. For those of you who may consider flipping houses. Now, you get these guys who sell you these dreams and they'll say, oh, all you have to do is get this, this, and that. I would say be very careful when it comes to that, but I will give you guys one tip before I go, and I'll explain it more on the membership side. But check out auction.com and check out the houses that are being sold at the courthouse stoop, because at the court, now I'm giving you guys some heavy information here. At the courthouse stoop is when the bank that's foreclosing on a person's house, they actually put in their bid too. Boom. So they're putting in their bid. When you get to the auction, I usually ask the referee, what is the bank's bid? Recently, we did a property in Hopewell Junction, not too far from me. The house was worth $489, able to pick it up for around $270. So imagine the room there. And most of these houses now go straight to the market, although some people used to try to renovate them more so. A lot of these guys list it straight to the real estate agent and off we go. So that's a free tip for tonight too in that arena, but I don't want to get too heavy into that. We will be discussing these things on the membership side as time go on. Good night, everybody, and I really do appreciate you guys. Take care.
Different voices, but the same song. Living a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the flame remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beat as one. colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.